It was Monday night, and nearly 8:30. I'd spent the evening working on a project in my home office in Portland, Oregon. The project still needed more work, but I was done for the night. I walked into the dark kitchen, opened the fridge, and grabbed a bottle of my favorite IPA. As I looked out the kitchen window, I saw Olivia curled up on our outdoor couch by the fire pit and pool. She was tucked into the corner, her feet folded under her, talking on her cell phone. I was about to walk out and join her when I noticed something familiar. She was twirling a strand of her blonde hair with her right hand. It was a gesture I knew well. Olivia had absent-mindedly twirled her hair like that since we first met nearly 30 years ago. It wasn't a sexual thing, it was something deeper, something that always made me feel close to her. Whenever we had our most intimate conversations, Olivia would twirl her hair. It was her way of showing she was fully present, fully engaged. I'd seen it 1,000 times, when we talked late at night, when I called her from business trips, when we laughed together on the couch. It was a small, unconscious habit, but it meant the world to me. But tonight, something felt off. I continued to watch her through the window. She was smiling, occasionally laughing, and her body language was relaxed, too relaxed. She was glowing, radiant in a way that made my heart ache. But as I watched, a sinking feeling settled in my chest. She wasn't talking to a friend or a family member. She was flirting. I couldn't see the familiar twinkle in her eyes from this distance, but I knew it was there. I'd seen it before, when we were dating, when we got married, when we celebrated anniversaries. But now, that twinkle wasn't for me. I stood there, frozen, as the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. My wife, the woman I'd loved for nearly 3 decades, was having a secret love talk with someone else. I watched for almost 45 minutes as Olivia laughed, smiled, and twirled her hair. When the call finally ended, she sat there for a moment, a dreamy smile playing at the corners of her mouth. It was a smile I hadn't seen in years, not directed at me, anyway. I felt numb as I walked into the family room, turned on the TV, and pretended to watch the local baseball team in action. Olivia eventually came inside, her cheeks flushed from the cool night air. "How long have you been done with work?" she asked, her voice light and carefree. "A while," I replied, not looking away from the TV. "Why didn't you join me outside?" she asked, tilting her head. "You were on the phone." I didn't want to interrupt. "Oh, for heaven's sake, I was just talking to Ethan. We were finalizing some details for the Thompson account," she said, waving a hand dismissively. Like I said, I didn't want to interrupt, I repeated, my tone flat. Olivia gave me a strange look but didn't push it. She moved to the kitchen and came back a minute later with a glass of wine. She sat on the edge of the couch, close to my recliner, and asked, "What's the score?" "I don't have a clue," I admitted. She chuckled. "Do you at least know who the Mariners are playing?" "The Blue Jays," I said, still staring at the screen. We watched the game in silence for a while before Olivia broke the quiet. "Let's have the kids over for a barbecue this weekend," she suggested. "Sounds good," I replied, my voice distant. Olivia spent the next few minutes talking about her plans for the weekend, but I barely heard her. My mind was racing, replaying the scene I'd just witnessed. "Michael, what's wrong?" she asked suddenly, her tone sharp. "Nothing," I said, still not looking at her. "You're not saying much tonight." "That's not like you," she pressed. "I have a lot on my mind," I replied. "Is there anything you'd like to talk about?" she asked, her voice softening. "No," I said firmly. The silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. Olivia eventually jumped up from the couch during a commercial break. With practiced ease, she pulled her blue V-neck t-shirt over her head, revealing the bikini top she'd been wearing underneath. "How about turning off the TV and meeting me upstairs?" she said with a grin. I'm sure I can work your stress away. No thanks, Olivia. I'm not in the mood tonight, I said, my voice cold. Her grin faltered, but she didn't give up. She reached between my legs, her voice teasing. Come on, big guy. Mama needs you. I looked into her eyes, my jaw tight. What don't you understand about I'm not in the mood tonight? I snapped. Her smile vanished. What the hell's the matter with you? I'm only trying to be nice, she shot back. Olivia, you turn me down for intimacy at least twice a week. If I turn you down once a year, you whine like a 4-year-old. Grow up and leave me alone, I said, my voice rising. If looks could kill, I would have been dead on the spot. Olivia glared at me, her eyes blazing, before she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room. For the first time in our marriage, I slept in the guest room. The next morning, I woke up early, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the image of Olivia twirling her hair, smiling at someone who wasn't me. I knew I had to find out the truth, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. I showered in the kids' old bathroom, careful not to wake Olivia, and snuck into the master bedroom to grab my clothes. She was still asleep, her blonde hair fanned out across the pillow. For a moment, I hesitated, wondering if I was overreacting. But then I remembered the way she'd smiled during that call, and my resolve hardened. Before leaving for work, I downloaded a tracking app onto Olivia's personal and work phones and synced them to my laptop and iPhone. It was a violation of her privacy, but I didn't care. I needed answers. I arrived at work with 2 large coffees from Portland Roasters and a pounding headache. Despite the lack of sleep, I managed to have a productive day. I put the finishing touches on a presentation I'd been working on and prepared for a quick 2-day business trip to Seattle. That night, the atmosphere at home was frosty. Olivia and I barely spoke, and there was no intimacy. I slept in our bed, but it felt like I was lying next to a stranger. I left the house early the next morning for my flight to Seattle. The trip was productive. I closed a major deal with a client and felt confident about the future of my career. But my personal life was a different story. Every few hours, I checked Olivia's location on the tracking app. Most of the time, she was at home or work, but on Tuesday night, something changed. At 7:30 p.m., the app showed her at an address in an upscale neighborhood in Lake Oswego, a town just outside Portland. I recognized the address immediately. It was Ethan's house. My stomach churned as I realized what was happening. Olivia wasn't just having an affair, she was staying at Ethan's house while I was out of town. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. I spent the rest of the trip in a daze, going through the motions of my meetings while my mind raced. When I returned home on Thursday, I installed 4 hidden cameras around the house. 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the family room, 1 in the guest room, and 1 in the master bedroom. The cameras confirmed my worst fears. Every time I left town, Olivia packed a bag and stayed at Ethan's house. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. The next few months were a blur of anger, heartbreak, and planning. I hired a private investigator to document Olivia's affair, and the evidence was damning. The PI captured photos of Olivia and Ethan together in his backyard, laughing, kissing, and doing things she hadn't done with me in years. I filed for divorce and hired a family law attorney recommended by a colleague. Since our kids were grown and out of the house, the process was relatively straightforward, at least on paper. Emotionally, it was a different story. One Thursday evening, I called our 3 kids, Sophia, 28, Liam, 26, and Emma, 24, to break the news. Each call was gut-wrenching. I cried with them, assured them I loved them, and explained why I was divorcing their mother. "Do you want me to send you a video of your mother in her lover's backyard?" I asked when they tried to convince me to reconsider. They all declined. On Friday morning, I put my plan into action. I left the house early, pretending to go to work, but instead, I parked a few blocks away and waited. When the tracking app showed that Olivia had left for Ethan's house, I returned home and packed all her belongings into 48 cardboard boxes. By noon, I was standing in Ethan's driveway, a U-Haul truck parked behind me. I called Olivia, my heart pounding as I waited for her to answer. "Hi, love," she said, her voice cheerful. "How are your meetings?" "Hi, Olivia. Meetings are meetings. You know how it goes. How's work?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "I'm so happy it's Friday. I can't wait for you to get home." "It's been a long, lonely week," she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. I clenched my fists, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Olivia, I have a question for you. It might sound weird, but I'd like an honest answer." "Of course. What is it?" she asked. "Do you like my smile?" There was a long pause. "What kind of question is that?" "You know I love your smile," she said, her voice tinged with confusion. "Yes, you've told me that many times. In fact, it was the first thing you ever said to me. Remember that night at the frat party? You broke away from your group of friends, came up to me, and said, 'You've got a great smile.'" Olivia's voice grew tense. "Michael, what's this about? You're scaring me." "Unfortunately, Olivia, too much damage has been done. It's far too late to talk," I said, my voice breaking. "Don't say that. It's never too late for us to talk," she pleaded. "Any talk, any discussion, has to be based on love, trust, and respect. I know you love me, Olivia. I know it, and I love you too. But I no longer trust you, and I know you don't respect me." "Michael, please, Olivia, come to the front living room window," I interrupted. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice rising. "Just do it," I said firmly. I heard her gasp as she realized what was happening. "Oh God, oh no. He knows. Ethan, Michael knows." I watched through the window as Olivia and Ethan appeared, their faces pale with shock. I shifted the U-Haul into reverse and slammed on the brakes, sending 48 boxes of Olivia's belongings tumbling onto Ethan's driveway and lawn. As I stepped out of the truck, I saw Olivia standing on the front steps, wearing the bikini I'd bought her for our 25th anniversary. Ethan stood beside her, his face ashen. A process server stepped out of a nearby car and handed Olivia and Ethan legal documents. "Olivia Clifford, you are served. Ethan Miller, you and Patterson, Miller, and Lewis are served," she announced before driving away. I looked at Olivia, my heart breaking as I said, "At a minimum, I hope we can all agree that I deserve better than a lying, cheating woman for a wife." Olivia started to cry, but I turned away, climbed into the U-Haul, and drove out of her life.